Namaskar, I'm Vijender Sharma, and I will be sharing a few thoughts with you on my book, Essays on Indic History. But before I start, I would like to thank the Pondicherry Literature Festival and its organizing team for giving me this opportunity and the platform to share my thoughts with you. So let's begin the journey. The book covers ancient Indian history from the arrival of the first humans on the Indian subcontinent up until about the first Islamic invasion. This period holds a special significance for us. This was the time when our social and political structures developed, and we made huge strides in cultural and scientific field. This was also the time which was base of our civilization evolution. But why call the book Indic History, or why not call it simply Essays on Indian History or Essays on Ancient Indian History? While researching for the book, I realized that a large body of research that many historians rely on comes to us from early European historians who got interested in India in the early 18th and 19th century. These historians had very different motivation to write on Indian history. And their view was always as an outsider. They had no cultural link to India and interpreted Indian history based on their own understanding and biases of a deeply Christian upbringing. Their account of Indian history was white-splaining. That is, where a white person understands the Indian history and explains the Indian history to the Indians. But then comes the 20th century Marxist view of history. While the colonial historians and Indologists viewed Indian history from their Christian biases, the Marxist historians viewed Indian history from their lens of class struggle. In the Indian context, the class struggle was substituted by caste and religion. In both the cases, Indian history was distorted and written to suit a particular agenda. Indian history was no longer written in its own right, but rather written to suit vested interests. In both cases, it was viewed from perspective of an outsider. But today, we as a modern nation should look at our history from our own perspective and not rely on what outsiders' view has to tell us. Hence, I decided to indulge myself into using this term Indic in the title of the book, because that is what it is. It is a celebration of Indian history from point of view of an insider, someone who understands the nuances of Indian culture by virtue of being born into that very culture. During my research, I also realized that a lot of information in popular history books has now become obsolete and outdated. A lot of information which I found interesting is scattered around in academic papers, blogs, archives, and highly specialized, narrowly defined titles. This gave me an idea to collect all such information and present it as a collection of essays. While conceptualizing the book, I was very clear that this project will not be another chronological series of events. I wanted to make this an interesting read for everyone. The idea was to present information that would trigger the minds of history enthusiasts and not bore them with academic language. This was the reason I broke down my research into essays. The essays format gives the option to the readers to pick up any one of the essays that they find interesting, instead of reading the book from the beginning to the end. The essays are a compilation of interesting facts, as I said, that are either ignored or underplayed in history books. I have also tried to explain implication of the facts we know as standalone piece of information. I'll give you an example. During the excavation at various sites of the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization, lots of toys have been found. These include pieces of board games, mechanical toys, and even complete kitchen sets in some places. These finds tell us that kids used to play with toys around 5,000 years ago. This is a piece of standalone information. But what does this imply? This is what I have tried to explain in the book. The social implication of existence of a large number of toys tell us that the Sindhu Saraswati civilization indulged in leisure activities. This in turn means that people had leisure time because they had surplus food. Now, all of this implies that there was a clear division of labor where some people indulged in agriculture while others indulged in activities like toy making. There are other instances where I have tried to find proxy information to understand what is not said. One of my personal favorites is the Bakshali manuscript. It is one of the oldest extant manuscripts on Indic mathematics. It contains the earliest mention of zero as a number, not as a placeholder, as a number. The manuscript refers to various mathematical problems, including those pertaining to business transactions. The manuscript mentions products like kumkum, honey, lapis lazuli, molasses, etc. This may not be significant from a mathematical point of view, but they hold immense significance in terms of giving us information on products that were traded in the 3rd century India. That's when the earliest part of the manuscript was written. The manuscript gives solutions to problems involving exchange of animals like the Bactrian camel, horses, mules, etc., indicating that the people of the region traded in with other people from different geographies who exchanged animals once they crossed different terrain. So Bactrian camel cannot be used in the Indian plains, so they have to be exchanged with a horse. Similarly, there are references to Ramayana and Mahabharata in mathematical problems. This again indirectly indicates that these epics were well incorporated into the religious fabric of 3rd century India. I have also tried to shatter some myths, or at least tried to put forth the reasoning behind such myths. I have touched upon subjects like the Aryan invasion, or now what is called as the Aryan migration, dating of the Vedas, the so-called collapse of Sindhu Saraswati civilization, and existence or the doubts of existence of the river Saraswati. In the essays related to these subjects, I have refrained from giving a judgment, but have presented my own understanding of these things based on available facts and other pieces of information. I want the readers to make up their own mind when they go through these essays. I want to stimulate them to read up more and do their own research to arrive at their own conclusion. I hope that leaving things open to readers will kindle their curiosity. Another aspect that I tried to address was the relative lack of content on Eastern and Southern India in our history books. In the book, I have included chapters on the Satavahanas, who are mentioned in a small paragraph, usually in our textbooks. But they were one of the greatest dynasts of postmodern world who shaped our society. While researching the Satavahanas, I realized that the then society had value systems that today the Western world views as progressive. Not only did they take up their mother's name, they also issued the first ever joint coinage with the names of both the king and the queen. Similarly, I have tried to highlight the lesser known contributions of the Eastern Indians when it comes to disseminating Indic culture and thought to Southeast Asia. I dedicated an entire essay on the ancient trade routes of India from its eastern borders. Though the primary focus of the traders was commerce, they inadvertently took the Indic religion, language, and culture with them to far off places like Bali and Sumatra. The traders also discovered the monsoon patterns long before the Roman sailors did. The book talks about trade not only from the eastern borders of ancient India, but also how the impact of Indian trade was felt as far away as Egypt at the peak of Sindhu Saraswati civilization. We know that the mummified remains of Ramesses II had peppercorns stuffed in his nostrils. The only way this could be explained is through an extensive trade network that spanned the Western Ghats of India and reached the ancient ports of Red Sea in Egypt. Apart from talking about history, I have dedicated a large section of the book to the various achievements of ancient Indians. This section spans art, science, and language, which not only shaped us as civilization, but also influenced the entire known world in that time. From zero to algorithms in mathematics, to the art of nested stories in literature, cataract surgeries, and medical ethics, India has gifted so much to the world that all of it has to be celebrated by us. Since the book was published, I received a lot of positive feedback on the content and the flow of language that makes it interesting for the readers. I have also got suggestions to get the book translated into other Indian languages. As a first step, I am collaborating to get the book translated into Kannada, and if all goes well, the Kannada translation should be available later in 2021. That's next year. I hope I was able to excite you about Indian history through this talk. I look forward to have many more interactions, discussions in the future with you. Namaskar.